Hi, welcome to episode 165 of the PassionKnit Spinner podcast. My name is Tracy. You can find me as Schnüffeltier on Ravelry and Instagram. I do have a Ravelry group, but it's very stagnant. There also is a Discord server, and I'm going to link that in the description box today. And the link for that is only going to be valid for the next 7 days after I upload this video. So if you come here after that time, the link will be expired. So that's that. I also have a Patreon, and let's start. So, knitting in the past. Can you see? Can you see? I finished the Mega Lara sweater. I mean, it's been done for weeks, but I just managed to sit down and weave in the ends and seam the whole thing together. It's taken me way too long. So let's recap. Oh, okay. My project bag that I used was this very pretty thing from the Hard Rock Cafe, but it worked because it's nice and big. So the pattern, let's take it out here and I can show it to you if I can ever find here it is. So this is the pattern. It is the Mega Lara sweater by Shiny Superhero. It is a paid for pattern, and I did do prizes for finished things. So I think the pattern was like 6 or 7 euros. Let's go with 7 euros for the pattern. My main yarn was this. This gray yarn is Shoppel Alpaca. That's not it. I don't think I have a label for that one. Oh no, I do. It's Shoppel Alpaca Queen. Looks like this. And I had 4 skeins that I got at the factory outlet shop. And I think all 4 skeins together were around 20 euros. So we're 27. And then I have 3 skeins of hand spun. And that is what makes this sweater expensive in the end. Because fiber for spinning is about $25 to like 25 euros-ish per bump. So that's another 75. And 27 is 102, which is quite a lot. But it's hand spun. You cannot beat hand spun. So I used this skein here. It's called Girl with a Pearl Earring after the painting. And it's this one here. This was one of the very first hand-dyed braids of fiber that I ever used. And it is from the Eclectic Sheep. And it was, what was it? What were you? It is a Corriedale. So this is that, and I have like half of it left, easily half. Then the next is this here, this yarn. It is called Pam, and I'm pretty sure this was a True Blood inspired colorway, but I do not have the original ball band anymore. So I have no clue what this is. I'm gonna say it's probably a merino, maybe merino superwash. No, it's a merino. I wrote that down, but I didn't write down the dyer. So this is the next one. Also half of this one left. And I used that here and here. And the last one, I have this much left, is from Politically Incorrect Fibers. No idea if any of these are still in business, you know. And I had 4 bats that were all the same, and I spun them 4 different ways. I did singles, which I used for the sleeve here. I did 2-ply, which is at the back. That one is the 2-ply. And did Navajo ply, which is this one. This one, like I said, is the single. And I had the 4th one, I spun into a core spun yarn, and I have it here, but it was a bit thicker than the other ones, so I didn't want to use it for the sweater. So this blob here should have been this yarn, but I used the other yarn instead to just, get this, the thickness right. I knit this sweater, I think, on a 6mm needle. It calls for a very thick yarn. What does it call for? Let's see. It calls for 6 and 8mm needles. That's US 10 and 11. And I used a 5 and a 6. A 5 for the hems and a 6 for the rest of the sweater. And I did knit the second largest size to accommodate for my smaller yarn, because her yarn is a bulky weight, and mine was more like a worsted. So that is it for this sweater. I have something else in here that I need to show, and I need to find it. So that is one part. Ah, here it is. Okay. It's for the next thing I need to show, but I guess I have all of it now. Okay, let's just, oh, here it is. Let's roll with that. Okay, so Megalara sweater. It is super nice. It turned out really amazing. I love it. I think it is a perfect pattern to showcase handspun yarn because you really can see the handspun. But this sweater is very warm, so we're gonna have a wardrobe change, which is, you know, kind of foreshadowing for things to come to this channel in the very near future. So let's take this off now and put on the other thing that I did since we talked last time. Whew. Okay, that's a lot better. Okay, now you go over there. Okay, so since my last podcast, I started and finished another project, and I'm gonna put it on and show it to you. So it is a vest. I knit this without a pattern. Let's start this over. So I made a vest, and I made a vest also last year. And I knit this vest in the exact same way that I knit the vest last year. And I feel like my phone keeps going down. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but okay. So I knit this vest without a pattern, my own recipe, like I knit the vest that I did make last year. Now I'm gonna show it to you. So this is it. This is what it looks like in the front and in the back. This is it. So I have done this, like I said, without a pattern. I just cast on, did a bit of an I-cord for the back neckline. So it's knit top down. I have done I-cord edgings for the neckline and the armholes. So there is no finishing. You know, when you're at the bottom, you're finished. So now the yarn that I used for this is Rowan Thick and Thin. And I knit this vest on an 8mm needle. Now the thing is, I had 10 skeins of this yarn, but 2 different dye lots, 5 skeins each. So I had started a sweater from a German knitting magazine, and when I had completely knit up the first skein, I had this much sweater. And then I calculated, if I have 3.5 for the front, 3.5 for the back, and then 1.5 each sleeve, 10 skeins. But that times 3.5, it doesn't make a front of a sweater for me. So I ripped it out, made this vest instead, and now I have 5 skeins left because I only used 5 skeins of this yarn to make this vest. So I'm not sure what to do with the other 5. I probably will just give it away. And this is what I had left. After finishing the whole vest, I had this much left from 5 skeins of yarn. So this yarn is it's 100% wool, and it has 50 meters per 50 grams. So it is super bulky. And I used, like I said, an 8mm needle. That is a US 11. And super happy with how it turned out. I think the fit is perfect. The length is perfect. It goes a bit over my waist. So when I wear one of my skirts, you know, it will cover the hem of the skirt. And it very much fits into my librarian aesthetic. So really, really happy with this vest. Also, super warm. I'm melting for you. So now, these are the things I finished. I feel like I haven't done a whole lot of knitting, and I really didn't. I made this vest, which was like 250 meters of a bulky weight yarn. And all the other things I have to show are just that much. So I'm gonna show the reindeer cardigan first. And I knit 2 rows on it. So I'm not going to hold it up for a long time because 2 rounds don't really, you know, make much of a difference. But this is what it looks like. Super happy with it. And yeah, 2 rounds more than it was before. So not really worth showing. But because it's so pretty, I just wanted to show. The other thing I worked on was a skirt. Oh, project bags. This here is a Mad Bird bag. This here is my own bag. This yarn, my brain is just talking about cost. I got this yarn on sale. I think it was like €3 a ball. So it was 15 euros for the vest. Now, back to this. In here, I have the skirt. It is called Jaunty. And I'm going to show it to you in a second. So here's my version. This is how far I've gotten so far. And the pattern is by Ririko. It is a Japanese designer pattern. This is what it looks like. So this is the skirt I'm making. And I'm still in the black portion, which for my skirt is pink. And then I also have a gray and a mustard yellow to end the thing. So there's not a whole lot to talk about. It is super easy to knit. The one thing I did is I changed needles. I got a longer fixed circular. So this now is what I'm going to work with. And it's all I have to say. It's super easy, brainless, in between knitting. So that's what I'm doing. When I'm not sure what to work on, I work on this. I started a pair of socks that I am knitting with 2 of my friends, and we all got the same skein of yarn, and it is an opal sock yarn. And we do meet over Zoom once a week, and we knit on these socks only during our meetings. So this is the result of 2 of those meetings. And I have just done the heel, and now I'm working my way down the foot. Whoops, this is it. This is the skein of yarn. It is from a very new collection of opal sock yarn, and it's called Herbstmelodie. And this colorway here is called Früchtetee. And last time I said, oh, I cannot find the name of it, and it's right here. It's right there. It says Früchtetee, which is a fruit tea. And so these are the socks. 2.75 millimeter needles, top down construction, 64 stitches for myself. And the bag is also one that I have made. Now I have 2 more projects. First off is here in this unicorn bag. I worked on another square for my husband's blanket. And I have not done a lot on this. I'm pretty sure I had started this square. So I have reached the point where I start decreasing. So these are, you know, on the bias knit squares. You start with little stitches, then you increase until you reach the middle, and then you decrease back down. So I have started decreasing, but that's it. There's nothing really to talk about with this. The pattern is by Helen Stewart. It is called Habitation Throw. And I modified it to be small squares and then seam them together. The pattern is one large square, but I didn't want to do that. So that is that. And now the last thing that I started is my Christmas Eve cast on. And last time I talked about how I felt like finishing all the things, not starting anything new, like I did last year, and then I want to start everything right now. I have not yet. I mean, I started and finished this one, and I started the socks, but you know, the socks were started before Christmas. So yeah, let's go with the Christmas Eve cast on here. So my Christmas Eve cast on is a pattern by Martin Story. It is called Skipness, and it is a free pattern. It looks like this. It is a very cute cropped cabled cardigan. The pattern is a free pattern, like I said, on the Rowan website and also on Ravelry. You can download it. And the pattern originally is knit with Cashmere Tweed by Rowan. And I'm not using that because I'm using stash yarn because that's what I like. And the stash yarn I'm using is far from a Cashmere Tweed. I'm using Red Heart sock yarn that I got for really cheap, €4 a ball, at the Coats Factory Outlet shop. And I'm holding it together. So this is the Red Heart sock. And I'm holding it together with this Drops Kid Silk. And can you see my finger? Wanna guess who did that? So this is and the two yellows are very, very different. And I was a bit concerned about that. But when you start knitting them together, they make this really, really pretty marled fabric. So yeah, I cast it on. The pattern is written to be knit flat and seamed. And I'm doing that because I actually quite enjoy it, you know. Once I get started, I really like doing it. And that's how far I've gotten. Not a lot. I have to knit this to be 7 centimeters long, and then I get to start the cable pattern. And what I'm going to do, because this is, you know, quite large, I'm thinking about actually ripping it out and starting a size smaller, or you have to do a lot of increases after the ribbing. And the increases to my size would be like 30 stitches or something. But if I only increase 10 stitches, I get to the next smaller size that I didn't want to do. So I might just do that, you know, don't increase as many stitches and just go down a size now that I see how large this is. Because the pattern also on the model looks like it is a bit oversized. And for this, I don't want that. I want this to fit. So that's the Christmas Eve cast on. And I think that's the knitting. That is what I have on the needles. Now, for knitting in the future, like I said, I want to knit all the things, and I want to film a very in-depth video of what I want to start knitting wise, and also what I will sew to go with all of that. And but that will be a Patreon video because it's going to be like a year-long project that I'm going to do over on my Patreon. So if you're interested in that, you have to check out the Patreon page. Now, that was that. I don't have any spinning. I wanted to finish my Ply on Fly project, but the weather has gotten so horrible that I cannot go out for my walk. I mean, I can go for a walk, but I cannot stop and spin because it's been raining a lot. And I don't want to spin in the rain. I mean, yeah, no, it's not happening. Then I have some sewing. I'm going to do the sewing first, and then I'm going to do the reading, listening, watching. So, sewing. Within the last 2 days, I made 3 skirts. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but I did. So I'm going to order them in the order I made them. So the first one, let's put those on my lap here. The first one I made was this one. And this one, I didn't really make it last week. I made most of this earlier in the year, but I stopped when it came to doing button holes and doing the bottom hem. So I did that the day before yesterday. I did the bottom hem first, and then I did buttonholes and buttons. And there's lots of them. And I was just too afraid to screw it up. But I love how the buttons look with this fabric. So the thing is, sewing can be a very cheap thing to do, can also be not very cheap. So the fabric for this, so this is one fabric. I did not piece anything together. This is what the fabric looks like in this lovely mixture of stripes. I got this as a fabric coupon, like one piece already cut to be 1.5 by 1.5 meters. I bought this on the fabric market, at the fabric market, and it cost €5. And I used up most of the fabric. I have a tiny bit left, and I think I might want to try and use that floral print to do a bra. That's my idea right now. So the fabric was €5, but the buttons were €35 because I went to a fabric shop to find the perfect buttons for this. And I did. I mean, the buttons are perfection for this fabric, but they were $3.50 each, and I had to get 12. So I put on 9 and I have 3 spare. Because I didn't put on as many. The pattern calls for 11s, for 11 buttons. So I thought I'd get 12, so I have 1 spare, but I ended up only doing 9, and I really like how it turned out. Let me show those buttons again. Can you see? I think they are so gorgeous. So yeah, this skirt in the end comes to 40 euros, which I think is still a good price for a good skirt, you know. But yeah, we were at 5 before we had to add buttons. And the pattern for this is from a La Maison Victor pattern magazine. I think they're from Belgium. I'm not sure about that. But you can get a lot of those patterns online. And the one that I made is the front pattern here. It is called the Dolores skirt. I'm gonna show it to you in the magazine. And I wanted to make that ever since I saw the magazine. And then I bought some linen skirts that are basically the exact same pattern. You know, they look the exact like this skirt. And they are my favorite skirts to wear. So yeah, I just had to make it. So this is theirs, and their version is longer than mine. Mine is about 10 centimeters below the knee, but then I ran out of fabric, you know, and I used up everything, which is also something I enjoy doing. So, and the back is just one piece cut on the fold. So that's the first skirt, and the fabric, as you can see, it is super nice and drapey, very soft. This will be a perfect summer skirt. It also feels a bit cool, you know, when you touch it. So that's a keeper. So the thing was with the sewing, this year, up until 2 days ago, I had made one garment, and that was the dress that I showed off a few weeks ago. The Christine Haynes Emery dress with the skeins of yarns on it. That was the first garment I made for myself this year. And the reason for that is, during lockdowns and COVID and all of the stress last year and this year, I've gained a bit of weight. It's not a lot, but it is enough to make my waist bigger than it was before, so I don't fit into my Holly Burn skirts anymore, the ones that I've made. And that made me lose all confidence in sewing, you know, because if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And if it's too small, because my body changed and I'm too, I cannot figure it out how to change a pattern, it's going to be ruined. So I didn't want to sew. And then 2 days ago, I just did it. I just sat down, and it took me a long time, and I almost cried sitting in front of my sewing machine and just not finding the courage to do it. And then in the end, I did. I made the hem first, because that skirt, you know, the waistband and everything had been assembled. There was nothing for me to change anyways. So I finished that one. And then someone commented, I did put up a post about this on Instagram as well, how I lost my confidence in my sewing abilities, or, you know, the fitting part of the sewing. And someone said, just go for your favorite pattern and adjust it and make it happen. And that's what I did. So next up, I made a Holly Burn skirt. But there's a problem with this skirt. So this is my skirt. It's gorgeous. This fabric is just so pretty. It is a very stiff fabric. I got this as a fabric remnant leftover bit at a fabric and yarn festival thing that happens here. And I'm pretty sure I paid €2 for the whole thing, the whole piece of fabric. Then I have a invisible zip that I buy in bulk in all kinds of colors. And I'm pretty sure it cost like 50 cents in the end. And I also used 1 spool of bias tape. That's also about $2.50. So what are we at? €5 for the whole thing? Pretty sure that's it. And I love it. I love this skirt. I've always wanted to make this skirt. Now, here's the problem. I cut this skirt 3 years ago. And like I just said, I gained weight. So I didn't know what to do for a long time. And then I did the obvious thing. I had to make the waistband bigger because that's the part that didn't fit. So I inserted this much between my fingers. There are 2 seams here. I inserted that much into the waistband. And then I thought, okay, now the waistband's big enough. It's also, now it's a bit too big, but so the waistband now is bigger. But what will I do with the rest of the skirt? Because this, you know, it's not gathered. This fits in perfectly. So I thought about inserting strips of fabric into the side seam on both sides to, you know, even that out. But then I realized the skirt pattern has a very large seam allowance. I think it's like 5/8 of an inch. Or maybe, yeah, I think that's it. That's 1.5 centimeters-ish. And that's a lot. So what I did for all the seams, there are seams in the front, in the back where the zipper is, and on the sides. So for all 4 of those seams, I didn't do a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, but like 3/8 of an inch. And that gave me enough leeway all the way around to fit the waistband onto the skirt without having to add any fabric to the actual skirt pattern, despite having put in like this much, what is that? Like 6 centimeters, 6.5 centimeters. And I could get it done. So the seam allowances in the top are now narrow, but they're not too narrow because I have serged around all of the pieces for this skirt before putting it together. And the seam allowance is a bit wider, of course, than the serged edge is. So there's still like 8 millimeters of seam allowance left, which is fine. So that is the story of the Hollyburn skirt. It's a long story, but I just adore this. It's very much me. And this also now ties into something that I want to make. And I brought it here with me. Can you see this? I have bought this cone of yarn before I have bought this fabric. And I've always wanted to make the Andrea Mowry Daydreamer with this. It's like a cables and baubles sweater. And the color is very distorted because we are working with lots of artificial light because it's very dark outside. So this is actually a bit darker, a bit more like this. And it is the exact same color as the darker red of those roses, which you will not be able to tell, but I'm gonna hold it up closer in the hopes that you can see. And I'm going to knit the Daydreamer to go with this skirt because I think it's going to be the perfect mix. So that was a long story about a skirt, but I'm super happy with it. I also didn't forget to put in my label, which the other skirt doesn't have. I'm thinking about maybe tacking one in by hand, but I had these labels made a while ago and I put them on project bags that I make and also on my clothes. So that's this skirt. And then the next and last skirt I made yesterday. Oh, it was hooked into my vest like this, like a gigantic nipple piercing. So this skirt here is also the Dolores pattern from the first skirt, which is a gathered skirt, which you can do when you have enough fabric. But I had bought this fabric here, which is a border print fabric from Spoonflower. And I had 1.5 meters, I think. And, you know, it was like this. So I had to do it like that, of course, otherwise it wouldn't have worked. And I used up every last centimeter of this fabric. So it's, like I said, the same pattern, also with the buttons, which I think these buttons are just so pretty. And you can really tell how well they fit when you look at the bird with the button in it. So I bought those buttons when I bought the other buttons, and they were the same amount of money. So another 35 euros for those buttons. And the skirt fabric, because it is from Spoonflower, and I'm pretty sure it was 1.5 meters, it's also around 30 euros. So this is quite the expensive thing. And I didn't have enough to do an actual gathered skirt. So what I did instead, I made sure that the waistband was fitting. It's also a bit big, but it's not perfectly in the waist. It just slits down a tiny bit. Who cares? All of my skirts have pockets, of course. So what I did, I put the waistband on my table. I found the middle of my back piece, and I found the point where I had to have the side seam attached to the waistband. And then I put in box pleats, or pleats in general. So in the back, I have one box pleat, because you always pleat outward, from the middle outward. So I have 3 pleats in either direction. And in the front, I only had enough to do 2 pleats on each side. So this is what it looks like. And I really think it turned out really nice. It is a very chic skirt, not something I usually wear. I think it's a bit more too much business for my personal style. But I've loved this fabric. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought it, And the problem is, I have absolutely nothing that can wear with this. As you can see in the pictures, I took pictures of all of these things before I started podcasting, and I'm wearing this white dress. It's actually a dress. It's not a skirt, a blouse. It is a dress, but it is super short. So I'm wearing this underneath because I really like the blouse top of it. And yeah, with white, it just looks super boring. I think this needs a hot pink top. And I do have a beautiful piece of fabric that is the exact same shade as my buttons and the birds are. And I do have a pattern that I would love to make with it, but the piece of fabric I have is tiny and I'm not. So I'm not sure if that's gonna work out, but it's a problem for future me. And this is my skirt. Yeah, I debated making it a bit shorter because, it is tight, but it's not as tight as I feared it would be. So I just decided to keep it long. And I just love those birds. No, let me show you a full bird and not a half bird. They're so pretty. So yeah, spoonflower fabric, buttons. I did all the buttonholes and everything. And I think my confidence is coming back. So that's a good thing. That's my sewing. Now, reading, listening, watching. I have watched the first Lord of the Rings movies, including all of the making of specials, appendices, material that there is in the extended version box set. This is a very long sentence. I also filmed a vlog for that whole experience, and I will upload that on my Patreon later today because I have to edit it. But that's gonna happen. So I watched that, and I am now watching 911. I'm on season 2. And what else did we watch? We didn't watch a lot. We have not yet watched The Witcher, which is a crime, really. But the problem is Tim is on a school break, so he doesn't go to bed before 10 o'clock. And which is fine because then he will sleep in the morning. But it means that we cannot watch The Witcher because that's a series that you just not sit down and watch an episode or 2 in the evening. You just sit down, you watch it, and you stop. And we haven't been able to do that yet. So yeah, it's gonna happen hopefully very soon. For listening, I haven't listened to anything except for music while sewing, but I have some reading. I don't know if I read more than this since last time because, time. I read The Love Hypothesis, and I read this as an ebook. I bought the ebook version because the book version, the actual physical book version, was so hard to get your hands on. And I thought, oh, it's fine. Just read the ebook. It's okay. And then I read the ebook in 2 evenings. The first evening I read till 4:30 in the morning, and the next one it was like it was just like 9:30 because I didn't have a lot left. But I finished this book, and I'm not sure if I already talked about this or not, but it doesn't matter. I loved it so much that I bought a physical copy that I now also have. I did talk about this in my Vlogmas videos. So here we go. I bought the physical book because I loved this book so much. It's a rom-com, you know, it's fluff, it's easy to read. I really enjoyed it. And I started the X Talk, which is also a rom-com, also fluff, easy to read. And this is about a woman who works at a radio station and has worked there for 10 years. She started as an intern and just kept working there. And she's now in her late 20s, or she's turning 30 or something. And she has a new colleague who, of course, because every rom-com hero